Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast with your host, Gui Costin. The goal of this podcast is to give listeners a unique look into sales strategies from top industry executives. We introduce you to the heads of sales and heads of distribution who will help you understand the inner workings of the successful sales organizations from philosophy to execution. This podcast is essential for sales professionals seeking wisdom from the best in the field. If you're not familiar with Dakota and their Dakota Rainmaker content, please check out dakota.com to learn more about their services.
This episode is brought to you by Dakota Marketplace. Are you tired of constantly jumping between multiple databases and channels to find the right investment opportunities? Introducing Dakota Marketplace, the comprehensive institutional and intermediary database built by fundraisers for fundraisers. With Dakota Marketplace, you'll have access to all channels and asset classes in one place, saving you time and streamlining your fundraising process. Say goodbye to the frustration of searching through multiple databases, websites, Form ADVs, and say hello to a seamless and efficient fundraising experience. Sign up now and see the difference Dakota Marketplace can make for you. Visit dakota.com/Dakota-Marketplace today. What is up, everybody? It's Gui Costin, founder, CEO of Dakota. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rainmaker Podcast. I'm so proud to be joined by Mark Allen of Royal Oak Realty Trust. Mark, welcome.
Pleasure to be here, Guy.
Great to have you here. Mark Allen is President and Chief Development Officer of Royal Oak Realty Trust. Mark's responsibilities include leading the firm's fundraising activities, managing the investor relations department, overseeing all communication to Royal Oak's shareholders, and assisting in strategic planning for the firm. Mark is a partner in Cambridge Street Asset Management, the asset manager for Royal Oak. Mark joined the firm in 2016 following a 15-year banking career at JP Morgan Chase Bank. In his final role with the bank, Mark served as the upstate New York region executive for the commercial bank, where he was responsible for the Rochester, Syracuse, Southern Tier New York, and North Central Pennsylvania corporate client markets. Mark is a past honoree of the Rochester Business Journal's 40 Under 40 for his business and civic contributions. He currently serves on the board of the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce and is a member of the board of Center State CEO, the Rochester Charitable Business Organization, Oak Hill Country Club, and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Rochester. Mark earned a Bachelor of Science in Finance from Miami University, Ohio, and a Master's of Business Administration from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. So this is actually near and dear to my heart because from 74 to 81, I lived in Rochester, New York.
Sure.
And I love hearing the stories, Oak Hill Country Club, everything. So why don't we just use that as sort of the beginning? Take us back. Where did you grow up? Walk us through kind of college and your early career and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I was born in Buffalo, spent a few months there. Really, Rochester's been home. I grew up there. I went off to Miami of Ohio for undergrad. Loved it, loved the Midwest. I ultimately got a job at Bank One in Chicago, which ultimately became JP Morgan. That was in 2000. Lived in Chicago 10 years with the bank. Most of that time, mid-market, mid-corporate banking. Went to Northwestern, Kellogg for my MBA. And then amazingly, we had our son and a daughter to come, and there was a job with the bank in Rochester back home. So I moved back home in 2010. Never would have thought coming back to Rochester. I spent 6 more years running the upstate New York and Pennsylvania market for JP Morgan in the commercial bank. And then interestingly, I had breakfast in 2015 with Dan Goldstein, the founder of this business. His co-founder tragically passed away in 2014. Larry Glazer and his wife passed away in a plane crash. The REIT was formed that year and Dan needed help. He asked me, thinking about fundraising, can you come in and do this? So having never raised a dollar in my life and not really a real estate banker, I said, sure. And I took that appropriate leap into this business in 2016. Haven't looked back, 10 years plus. It's a blast. And I love the fundraising business. I love what you're doing, both within Dakota and this podcast, but yeah, it's been fun.
Oh, that's awesome. So lessons learned, right? If you look back the past 11, 12 years,
yeah,
right? What are some of the sales sort of distribution lessons learned?
I say this out loud and to my team, we don't ask people to invest in our company. And back at the bank, it was a relationship business, which this business is. So I'd say leveraged a Rolodex that I've had over the last 25 years into opportunities with respect to fundraising. So there's a lot of translated skill sets in any business, right? You don't need to be a fundraiser to come into this world. You can do a lot of other things and be successful at it. But I do think relationships have transferred into what I do now, and they'll transfer into what I do in the future.
It's the craziest thing about the fundraising business because if you go meet with an allocator, there's a good chance you're going to be friends for the next 20 years.
Sure.
Right. And that's the longevity in the business, relationships. And it's not like the software business where, it comes in, a BDR sets up the meeting, an account executive closes it, account executive keeps going on.
Yeah.
You got to assign a dedicated CSM, which is great.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like the relationship, but the AE doesn't continue on with the relationship. Right?
Sure.
It's just the nature of, how the software business is constructed.
Yeah.
But the investment business is very, very different. Right, where you are friends because you're setting up your own meetings. Right. Well, so tell me, how is your team? Give us kind of an overview of your distribution team.
Yeah, I would say we've punched above our weight. And up until 2024, there were 3 of us: myself, a senior fundraiser, and a head of operations that raised at that point probably $400 million of capital. We couldn't double that kind of intuitively. And in hindsight, would we have been better off hiring more people earlier? Possibly, but we hired. Over the last 2 years, 4 additional folks. So we've got 2 fundraisers that cover the Midwest and Cleveland, and then St. Petersburg, Florida, kind of the Southeast.
Yeah.
And then also a marketing manager who really assists with CRM, outreach, digital media, B2B, as well. Lastly, a sales associate who just came on board this month to support the sales team as well our operations department.
What was the thinking behind how you were, now you have a pretty big team. I mean, you're right in kind of our wheelhouse, roughly 8, which is a lot, by the way, I think, for a boutique.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So Cleveland was logical. Our business, just to back up, we're an industrial REIT, mission critical facilities, kind of a niche lane with, 50,000 to 150,000 square foot buildings. That's what we acquire. Cleveland is our largest market. So Rochester, New York is much more of a Midwestern culture than it is a downstate culture, respectfully. Yeah. Cleveland is also one of our largest markets for fundraising. So having someone in the seat to really kind of own that market is critical. And that has transferred into obviously Michigan, deeper in Ohio, Indiana, et cetera, Illinois.
So having clients where the properties are is the connection.
I think that's right. And in Florida, there's a logical migration in the winter or a migration for tax status, and there's a lot of income and wealth in that Southeast footprint. So hiring Andy Cunningham on the team down there, he's, St. Pete born and raised, Florida State, Seminole Masters, NIL, loves that market, and he's dominating that market for us.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So one thing that I love after, if you could maybe, you sort of laid it out for me, but talk about communication, because I think communication amongst the sales team is so critical. Mm-hmm. And what is your normal cadence of communication? And this is a little bit of a leading question, because if you look at who's listening to the podcast,
sure,
the core principle number 1 of the Dakota Way is setting expectations with the boss.
Yes.
Right. And then making sure that you're in communication weekly about your progress against your plan. So could you talk, that's kind of where I'm coming from as a question.
Formality on communications, fairly straightforward. We have a morning meeting on Mondays, a weekly sales meeting with all of us on the sales team, operations, marketing, et cetera. And that's really a look back and a look forward on what's happening, any notable investments, opportunities, what's ahead, and then from that, I have one-on-ones with all of the sales team weekly. This morning, I've already interacted with 2 of the 3 sales guys, just that's the day-to-day, but we're kind of using our RIA probabilities and our investor probabilities to think about escalating it then into like further discussions that week. That's been the cadence, but there's really no time's a bad time to reach out to me or vice versa. And I'm not suggesting midnight on Saturdays, but we're a 24/7 shop. That's kind of built in my DNA. It's responsiveness to our client. So that's the same internally if needed.
Right. And so the importance of that, consistent communication. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because some people might be like, hey, that's too much weekly meeting or every 2 weeks or every month. And I always think if the boss doesn't hear from you or you're not in communication with the boss, just giving updates and progress against the plan, you're assuming they're doing nothing. And I think that's the kind of big takeaway.
That's right. Our prospecting and our investors are not individually owned in the sense that there's a lot of team effort into our relationship. So the communication style, or at least the approach, is let's think through this opportunity and who needs to be involved with that. So that's where we get into the intraday, intra-week, non-scheduled one-on-ones, because we're often on phone calls, Teams meetings, in person with clients, each and every day of the week. It's a see the people business. So that's kind of our MO. We want to be out and about, and the communication style has really been a team approach. So we're all kind of aware of what's going on. So we're facilitating the the conversion or the investment or the opportunity.
And talk a little more about the team approach, because the reason I think that's so important, it's not in everybody's DNA to think or behave that way, right? And that's not in every individual's DNA to be a really good teammate.
Yep.
And I mean, we're huge believers. Like we have all accounts are house accounts at Dakota. No one has their own accounts, right? Yeah. And we can meet with one another's accounts, and people, foster that. And if you create a safe place to do that, it's amazing the results that you can get from that sort of just, hey, I'm all in. I'm here to help the team win.
One of the hires had I'd say a wholesaling background where that team approach wasn't the case, and there was a lot of regional ring fencing of where you can and can't go and who you can and can't call. That's not the world we live in today, especially with what's happening with the consolidation and aggregation of RIAs around the country. So what pleases me most, Gui, is when a few of my teammates are kind of cross-pollinating ideas and actually jointly calling, because there's offices in Atlanta and Charlotte and Cincinnati, or, and that makes me excited, because that tells me implicitly, like, there is no concern over who owns the opportunity. There's, a win for one is a win for all. And while we do have primary ownership embedded in our CRM for certain names for obvious reasons, it's not, yours and only yours. So and that's a huge part of our DNA.
Yeah. Talk to me about this concept of the new, right? Finding new allocators to call on and build relationships with. Where does that fit in your whole distribution approach?
It's a big part of the culture. We've been successful. I mean, we've raised now close to $600 million, and we hit $1 billion in assets earlier this year with our 80th property.
Nice, congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been it's fundraising isn't linear, real estate isn't linear. New opportunities are what does feed the business. So I'll go back to what's happening with RIA consolidation. A lot of our current partners, we work with, let's say 30 RIAs, 2/3 of them have been acquired in the last few years.
Oh my gosh.
So the centralization of investment decisions, where it was once in Rochester or Cincinnati's now in Chicago or Boston, and your decision-making has to be fluid and you have to get to the right audiences, but new opportunities and there's thousands of RIAs, there's thousands of family offices. It's an infinite amount of opportunity. I love that component of this business, because back at the bank, I did have a regional confinement, and the upstate Pennsylvania market, while we love it, is confined. This is an ocean to explore, and we're having fun with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. When we started Dakota Marketplace in 2019, we had 600 roughly RIAs qualified in the database, which is, I always thought, massive. Now we have 7,000. Right, that are qualified, that they allocate capital to outside managers, which is a ridiculously large number now.
The way Dakota's critically improved our business, because now with this concept of parent account, child account, locations, decision-making, having that feed into our business allows us to have some clarity on the opportunity, because if we were not to have that, who knows who owns what and where things are going.
Yeah. And the whole idea behind Dakota Marketplace is just to eliminate the administrative work for a salesperson.
Sure.
Finding contacts, updating contacts, organizing information around those contacts and accounts. Yeah. Right? Just it's really the CRM business, right, is intensely data driven. And salespeople don't want to be data driven, right? They want to be out selling, building relationships, right? And uploading data, updating data, all of that, right? It's a complete, unfortunate waste of time, but a lot of people have to do it. So now that's a good kind of segue into one of my favorite topics. I think the 10X leverage is the use of a CRM.
Yeah.
I know you guys use Dynamics because you told me earlier, but walk me through the importance to you of a CRM as it relates to your sales business.
It's very critical. And I would say, if you grade, yourself or ourselves, I'd put us at maybe a B- right now, or a B even, and it's moving upwards, with teams on the road and travel, knowing where the opportunities lie are critical. We've complemented the sales component of the CRM with more of an operations as well. So it's closings of equity, investor positions. Kind of embedded in that is the MSA approach to follow the markets that we're in. So when you're traveling into a market, you can pull up all the investors, prospects, brokers, tenants, banks, any center of influence that's in that market. So the utilization's getting better. It's going to continue to improve, and over time, I would hope that it's kind of in one's back pocket all the time. We're not there yet. We have work to do, but it's working quite well.
That's great. And obviously you have all the team getting the meetings they've scheduled into the CRM, which is I think just so critical.
Absolutely.
Run past activity reports.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Activity reports. What we did a few years ago, we just a silo or structure. We've raised capital through 2 channels: high net worth family office, which is about 600 investors, and then through the RA channel, which is another 600. So individuals have their own opportunity staging and probability staging, and those are typically a shorter conversion cycle. If an investor is not allocating individually in the next 60 to 90 days, it's not happening.
Yeah.
RAs we know take years, months, never sometimes, but where we follow that is the probabilities of engagement and opportunities and investment committee review and subscription distribution. So we now have a tracker of probabilities that gives us a good lens as to where our highest priority items and when are we seeing them next? When did we see them last? So that's where we kind of are right now.
It's great. And then how about call notes?
Yes.
Because we were up and seeing Schroeder's 6 weeks ago in New York, did our meeting, and I went down to the elevator and I looked at the guy that we were with and I said, hold on one sec. I opened up Claude. Claude's connected to my calendar.
Yeah.
And I dictated, I said, Claude, can you write me call notes for the meeting I just had with Schroeder's? This is what we covered. These are the key takeaways. I paused, I looked at Rob. What else did we cover in the meeting that I should be, okay, we covered this. I turned back on the recording. I dictated in, can you now write the notes for me? Within 2 minutes, it had beautifully written call notes, right? And even though we're connected to Slack and into Salesforce, I just copy and pasted and put it right into Salesforce.
Yeah.
And that took 2 minutes, more professionally written than I could ever do.
Yes.
Got all the information out of my head.
Yes.
And I just said to everyone, I said, this is crazy. So I sent it to the whole company. I'm like, guys, team, this is amazing. I mean, now you can dictate your call notes and Claude will write them for you.
Yes.
Right? Include all the attendees in the meeting because Claude has your calendar.
Yes.
And you get richer, deeper, better call notes in like literally in a minute to 2.
Yes.
And it's over. I mean, that whole headache of the call notes is, and then there's a study done that in 24 hours, if you wait 24 hours to do your call notes, it's a 40% less character count.
It makes sense. Right. Well, I told you, I'm this podcast's biggest fan. So I heard that story. And last week, our largest RIA principal, who's one of my good friends, who's, I don't talk to him often. He's kind of got a foot out the door. 37-minute discussion. It was great. And I went on, so Claude and Copilot, and I use both. I co-piloted the transcript. Beautiful. Cut and paste into CRM. It's not connected yet, in terms of improvements on the AI side.
Yeah.
Which is another category to, of discussion, but we're working on it. And some of my team does use that. And it becomes much more, as you said, like robust, comprehensive, professional versus the quick Friday afternoon, I got to get all my notes in. And it's really useless for the reader or the reviewer at your next meeting with that said client. Yeah.
And if you can't record the call, right, because you're in a conference room and it's this unrecorded situation, if you just walk out and if you can talk, you can dictate and Claude's going to be write much better than you. It's going to have much better grammar. It's going to totally connect all the dots.
Fascinating.
Right?
It's amazing.
Do you guys use Slack at all?
We don't.
So if I showed you what the team can do now with a Slack bot, because the Slack bot's insane.
Yeah.
And we've always had all these channels around meeting notes. There's another one called software interactions, which is just copying and pasting a full email and connecting it to the accounts.
Okay.
You can then go back in and simply say, hey, I'm about to meet with XYZ. We want to do a renewal. Can you give me a whole scout on the account? What it comes back with literally would sear your eyebrows.
I'm sure.
It's so detailed and so cool. And then it gives suggestions, emails you should write, like the whole thing, right? So it's like a garbage in, garbage out. If you get that stuff in, then you can act on it.
We have a team offsite next month. And the Dynamics, the Microsoft consultant that we use, not just Dynamics, but the platform is part of our agenda. We've got a laundry list, maybe too much of here's where we need to improve certain things. And that kind of comprehensive summary, Slack or otherwise, is going to be already on that agenda because I'm meeting with Gui on, Tuesday the 19th, 18th, 26th, whatever. We don't know the day today, but meeting with Gui, I need everything, and right now it's not where we need it to be, but it's certainly something I see us going in the not too distant future.
Yeah. The Slack tools, Slack to Salesforce and what they've been able to do with the Slack bot, the channels. And as long as you're committed to getting the information in, actually 7 years ago, if you can believe this, I was teased, is that I was so frustrated with the team not getting the meetings they scheduled into Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
Our CTO back then had, I always said, there's like a next door neighbor who's like 16.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, hey, I think this kid can program Slack so we can have this interface. And so you can enter the meeting information there and it'll go directly into Salesforce. And then you can go send a calendar invite. So it's a 2-step process, right? You know how we got it done? I said, okay, that's great, but can it aggregate each day all the meetings that were set up in an email at 5 o'clock? Kid figured it out. So all the meetings that go in, so basically it doesn't count, right? Because you have to see it. So everybody just was trained, you enter meetings in Slack.
Yeah.
And then it goes into Salesforce. Well, from that, right, that happened in both investments, and then we did it for software, and then it aggregates, and then you can go back and ask your questions because it's all in these channels. And you say, hey, give me a breakdown of all the meetings we scheduled this week, right? So it's 120 meetings. It'll give you this whole analysis. I mean, it's just, if you can get that information in Slack, I've never used Teams, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's similar.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And
love it.
And what we're trying to do as an organization is, because we don't have any, as I say, I don't run a debate club, right? We're not here to debate. We're here to, because the more aggressive we are on the adoption of these tools, the more we can share what we're learning with our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we can all grow together, right? Because it's truly shades of gray in the Wild West.
Yes.
I mean, everyone's just, like for instance, I read this Substack post on Anthropic. They came out with this, it's called guidance, right? So personal guidance is one of the top things that Claude has asked. Over 1 million conversations, 1 million prompts, is personal guidance. They broke down personal guidance, the whole thing. So I was like, okay, cool. I've done all these podcasts. I've done 2 books. So we're just putting all that in a Google Drive.
Yeah.
Or we're going to program it. So we're just going to have a business coach where you can just ask the questions. Like after this podcast, I'm having Genevieve. Claude gave me, 40 questions to ask me, right? To basically program the system prompts.
Yeah.
So it's like talking to me.
I played around with Delphi, which has a robotic AI, humanoid of yourself, if you will. And it was a brief implementation of my own self, which giving it some of my stuff that I've posted and discussed and written about. And you have either kind of a chat or call feature. So you have your voiceover. So not only can you interact with Gui or Mark or whomever, you can hear that voice crisply. It's you telling that person about either it's a Royal Oak thing or, it's interesting.
Yeah.
And but for the human coach perspective, I get it. I mean, the personal guidance, I went on a 5-hour rabbit hole the other day, scripted questions of our business, critiquing my answers, got into some HR personnel. It actually stopped me after 2 hours because I'd been on a walk talking, just talking to it. And I love it. I think this AI thing is, it's not a thing, right? It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And we're just top of the first inning.
Yeah, because and we all know, you're now a professional copywriter, a professional business analyst in your pocket. You have, graphic designer in your pocket. I mean, we did 90 or 100 web pages using Claude.
It's great.
I mean, it's just incredible.
If you've ever been frustrated trying to build custom reports in either Dakota Marketplace or Salesforce, we have introduced Dakota Joe for you. Dakota Joe is a natural language report builder native to Salesforce built inside of Dakota Marketplace. For all of our Dakota Marketplace users, you can find Dakota Joe today and start running reports on accounts, investments, contacts, and a whole list of other objects. For Salesforce users, we have Dakota Joe coming soon to your internal Salesforce logins. You can learn more about both today at dakotajoe.ai.
All right, transitioning to leadership.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, clearly you have, the way you carry yourself. Characterize for me your leadership style.
Player coach, first and foremost. I love the hunt. I still have, primary responsibility on a number of more prospective opportunities than current clients. I've kind of transferred or transitioned some of what we've currently had as clients to others. So I think what I realize having others on the team is that my approach isn't the only approach, and it may not be the best approach. So I really enjoy talking to someone on my team about what they're working on, what's up ahead, and vice versa, thinking like, did you think about this? Or So from a player coach perspective, that's probably what I'd say is what I enjoy the most, and hopefully my team appreciates, because the last thing I want to be doing, and it's a danger in any business, is that your best salespeople become up and out of the actual hunt. So I love the hunt.
Yeah. And talk to me about how you guys treat each other culturally, at the company, because I think we spend so much time at work, and people leave bosses, they don't leave companies.
Yeah.
Right. And it comes down to how you're treated, and we've worked really hard at Dakota to have this kindness approach, be kind.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, the book's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Family oriented is one of our values. We have 5 values, but that's one that resonates to all of us. Our retention's awesome. So very rarely does someone leave. We just had our head of financial strategy leave to Dallas from New York, and she's staying with our firm. We want to give her that opportunity. She wanted it, we wanted it. So if you allow folks, like today, one of Rachel on our operations team is here in Philly for the World Cup with her kids, and I couldn't be more happy she's out of the office. Like that makes me happy. So I think there's this acknowledgement internally of like kids, grandkids, retirements, birthdays, celebrate that. You better be at your kids' recital, game, fill in the blank. So I think that family oriented is core to who we are.
That's great. Yeah, we have one of our core principles is family first.
Yes.
So it's like, if you're going to miss a kid's event because of a work thing, that's grounds to be fired.
Yes. I like that.
Well, because I'm like, what are you going to do? Like,
family first rolls off the tongue a little better, but family oriented it's that same thing.
Yeah, no, totally.
Family first is awesome.
I love that. All right. So final 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, so what advice would you give to a young person getting into the fundraising business today?
I would say a new professional should constantly be building, growing one's network. And I would go further to say, because I did it, go upstream, go to maybe that C-level person in the business that you want to talk to, show that desire, curiosity, ambition. And when you do that early and you're genuine about meeting folks and building a relationship and having a network, it compounds itself so brilliantly down the road. And like last week, we have a podcast series that we've just started, and one of our board members, Tom Bonadillo, was a guest, and I caddied for him back in the 90s.
Wow.
Which is, and he didn't remember me as a caddy, which was really disappointing. But I kind of came full circle where when I moved back to Rochester in 2010, I only knew 2 people in the business world. My parents were teachers. One was Tom, because I caddied for him, and then Kip Palmer, a fish and meat distributor, big company. So to have an opportunity to caddy for Tom, have him on our board, and I just, it's an amazing circle. So I'd say to a new professional, young professional, get out there, make your name, have that ambition, drive, hunger, and it'll play out beautifully over time.
So I do want to touch on your podcast.
Yeah.
Because I think of consistency, thank goodness.
Yes.
We have our studio team and Genevieve to keep everyone on track, and it's a forcing mechanism. So we're very consistent in our production. How have you guys gone about, because I think I was in Denver last October presenting to one of our customers just on our leadership style, and then the sales team came in. And one guy goes, "Do you believe in podcasts?" And I said, "Well, we have like 8 shows."
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, for portfolio managers." I'm like, "We have 8 shows."
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So I said, he's like, "Well, and he's giving all these excuses, right?" And I said, "Listen, I'm going to make something up. People, investors, allocators are always looking for insights from portfolio managers.
Yeah.
Always, right? There's never enough insight into what they're thinking, what they're seeing, domain expertise."
Yeah.
So I said, "Do me a favor. I'll give you an idea." I said, "Go to your portfolio manager and say, hey, what are the 3 questions today that I should ask you?" Okay. Write down those 3 questions, take out your phone, press record, and ask those 3 questions to the PM.
Yeah.
And it should take 10 minutes. Okay. So now you're going to get what he believes or she believes is the most germane insights today, like in the moment, right? So of course the pushback and everyone's freaking out, marketing, the compliance, they're all going crazy, right? And I looked at him, I said, the good news is for me is that I don't run a debate club, right? Everyone has to listen and do what I ask them to do, right? There's no debating. Here's the irony of it though. So I came back to our team literally that next day, and I went to the portfolio manager who was in this studio, and I said, "Alan, Dan's going to ask you what 3 questions should he ask?" He goes, "Oh, I love this," because they shoot their quarterly call at this anchor desk, and so we did that, right? What happened is, though, this is full disclosure, it petered out, right? We did it once a month, great insights, and then it just lost its steam, and then, the whole thing just doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's like real life. That's more like the way it really works. Oh, it's a great idea. We'll do the content. We'll ask the 3 questions. We'll share with our clients, the whole thing, and then it just goes. Can you talk? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I do. Well, so 2020, we'll remember that time. We know at that time, we got to do a podcast. That was my idea, and how are we going to reach clients? How are we going to get the word out? So I bought a nice big Casey Kasem microphone. For those who remember Casey, it's still on my desk. Never did it, which was the right decision. Now, I think one of our aces in the deck is transparency and accessibility to the team, humanizing the investment. So we've only done 3 episodes. 4th tapes Monday, but every other week we're going to be taping, and it's going to be casual conversations such as this. We had a board member. We'll have every one of our partners on the management team. We'll have tenants that we work with, RIAs that are current or prospective. So you're going to see an encompassment of the stakeholders in our business. But beyond that, then you can, if you think about transparency, we report monthly, written narratives. No one's reading it. It pains me, but I think that's the case. No one's reading long emails. So now we can complement our traditional reporting that we won't get rid of and have an audio and a visual medium of that. Here's an interesting idea. Maybe one of my friends, we all follow, acquired podcasts every month. They just did Disney, 3-4 hours. They're long, right?
Yeah.
But an RA said, you should do an acquired version of Royal Oak, the story, the real story, and go back, go to 2013, interview those that have been involved. And that could be for someone who really wants the deep dive. And that shows transparency. That shows every and all kind of milestones that our company's achieved. And that's an idea. I said, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do it. I'd love to, I want to hear a Dakota acquired, because there's a story to your firm, our firm. And if that resonates with a few folks, I mean, that's really what we're after. Just having someone, and we've successfully already, the reach goes far. I saw the podcast, so I'm excited about it. And we are going to,
if this podcast today, one person listening takes some action on the creation of content, because the more content you create, the better, as long as it's not like on LinkedIn and you're talking about you're talking about like a bunch of personal stuff. It's like sharing value. Like I just posted on our W Day yesterday, and why we do our offsites and what we do during the offsites, which is just come together. Each group comes in and we have a discussion about what's working, what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that, we have a strategy meeting with the 8 or 10 of us who sit in and listen to each group come in. And I said, look, with all of us running around as much as we are, this is like a very big brainstorming session, but we need to develop a quote unquote platform that, and just called brainstorming or brainstorm, whatever that is, which means you put it on the calendar. It could be a 5-minute conversation. It's not a meeting. It could be 90 minutes, but it's one topic. One person moderates. This is the goal of what I'm looking to achieve in this brainstorming session. It could be, hey, you know what? I told our investment sales team, pick Boston and just go through RAs in Boston. Just rip through all the RAs and see where we stand. Just do a deep dive. It could take you 30 minutes, 60 minutes. We used to do that in the old days. Unbelievable results, because that just generates sales ideas. You know what I mean? That was for the investment sales team. We had, we're doing Dakota 500, top FAs, right? It's getting there, but it's like a little bit of a slow boat to China, if you will, kind of thing. It's like taking a long time to kind of get this thing, there. So we're gonna have a brainstorm on it. It's like, do we want to do this? Do we not? And then we need to come out with answers. What I realized is, and I've told this to the team a lot, we're always focused on what's important, what's urgent, right? Always. That's just paramount, which is great. And the more you focus on what matters most, that's urgent and important, the more success you're going to have. I think the latent success you're going to have is the important but not urgent, right? So if you can have brainstorming sessions on those things, because it forces you then to either make a decision to go in a certain direction, or is it really urgent that 4 of you sit down and review RAs in Boston? You're going to get away with it and have success regardless, right? But if you actually do it, right, it's not urgent, but it is actually important. Like, let's do a deep dive in New York on RAs. Let's just go through, spend an hour and go through every single one. Where do we stand? What are our prospecting? And then all of a sudden you come at it and you're like, oh my God, that was such a productive use of time. That's where I think the gold is, like latent sort of gold in a business.
That's the first part of our offsite, spending time as a team talking about kind of targeted opportunities and kind of having an audience react to momentum, tactics, strategies. And then ideally internally in that room, you're learning something. It makes you a bit, whether it's a aha moment or a tip for the future. I think that's important, how we think about it.
Yeah, I can't see not doing our W days, we call them, right? The offsites. And we do them in the big room I just showed you, and it's just awesome. And team comes together, and we always come out of there with 5, 10, 15 insane ideas. Even though we're communicating on a daily basis, that isolated time together, and then the next idea is this important and not urgent brainstorming.
It sounds like people are not uncomfortable. No idea is a bad idea, and throw things on the wall. They don't all stick, and 100%. It sounds great.
I'm the number one at throwing ideas on the wall that don't stick.
But that's the creativity.
Right. So that's great. All right, last question. Every day is a challenge for whatever reason. What is one of the biggest challenges you're facing today, and how are you overcoming it?
I would say our strategy, which is an evergreen real estate vehicle, is in favor. What does that mean? Competition is fierce. There's 6 firms that dominate fundraising. 63% of capital raised last year, 6 firms. That compounded with this consolidation of RIAs, they're $1 trillion RIAs. So their allocation needs to be potentially more significant. So for me, the challenge that we in our firm faces, where are we relevant? I think our differentiation and that accessibility to management, you can't get at some of those larger managers if you're a few $1 billion RIA or a child account of an aggregator. But it's that differentiation that we're trying to expose folks to. And as I said earlier, fundraising isn't linear. So I read a book, The Tao of Fundraising, John Kim, great book, it just came out. And he talks about the art of money in motion. And it's effort and availability. Effort's controllable, it's micro. Like, we're working hard. Our team's working harder than ever. The availability is money coming into your product or out. Right now, it seems to be coming in, given some of the private credit issues. So I've kind of we've built this pipeline and mousetrap where I'm psyched to see where it's headed. That said, it's this unknown of consolidation in the large players and just managing through that appropriately.
All right. I love it. Well, I'm definitely going to read that book. Sounds fascinating.
Great. Yeah, there's some things in there that have changed the way I've told our story, which I think's fun about fundraising. If you heard me 10 years ago or even 90 days ago, I'll say one of the things, just for those out there, it's this concept of, the differentiation. It's your track record and differentiation divided by the complexity of the story. So I looked at that and I'm like, track record isn't just returns, and ours are good. It's personnel consistency, it's discipline, it's equity. Then the differentiation is, I'd say, that asset class we're in, that wedge of industrial. But the simple story for us, it's like, buy a good building with a good lease and a strong market and a financially healthy tenant.
Yeah.
Rinse, repeat. And advisors need to explain it to their client, right? And if you're explaining, you're losing, Ronald Reagan. So I kind of think simplicity, not dumbing it down, but simplicity is an important part of what we do.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're never selling to the end buyer, right? And they always have to repeat your story.
Yeah.
And that's the master sort of messenger component of the Dakota way.
Yeah.
Is you have to be able to master a story and make it so simple that basically anybody can understand it and retell it, because every story has it. But PMs and analysts, they're analytical and they like to create complexity.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that.
All right. Mark, enjoyed it. This has been amazing.
Loved it. Thanks, man.
You got
it.
You got it. All right. That's another episode of the Rainmaker Podcast. Thanks so much for joining. Can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Rainmaker Podcast.
You can find this episode and others on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform. We are also available on YouTube if you prefer to watch while you listen. If you would like to check up on past episodes, check out our website, dakota.com. Finally, if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please be sure to like, follow, and share these episodes. We welcome all your feedback as well. Thank you for investing your time with Dakota.